I just got in last night, and so I went to the happy hour, and I know why Bill used to hang out at the old Grove, and that was, especially if he was paying, that would be a great place to go, man. I couldn't believe everything was free, man. Jim Hanson, my fellow, you were the third Campbell, I remember, or the second?
Second and third.
Second and third. We're so old we can forget things like that. So we had like 7 drinks apiece, so it was so good. But anyway, I'm now the president of Robert Morris University near Pittsburgh. So if you find yourself in or near Pittsburgh, come see me. It's great to see you all. I'm delighted to be here. I wasn't here yesterday, so I don't know how the flow works. I don't need a microphone. We just talking here, or we need a mic?
Sorry about that.
No problem. Is if I have a problem being loud. I mean, this is not an issue. I want to make for recording purposes. I don't want to mess up. You want me to mic up? Okay, no, there we go.
Sorry.
All right, no problem. I know for recording purposes. I've been loud since kindergarten, so it's not a problem. All right, so Mark said I was the inaugural. Is it on now? I mean, switch it.
What do you think, 10?
Are we good?
Yeah,
We're good? Okay.
Right.
So I was the inaugural Campbell Award recipient. Actually needs a disclaimer because actually I won what they call the Dratty Award. Now this has been a great boondoggle for me. So in up to 1990, they would choose 11 scholar athletes for many years to win the Football Foundation Scholar Athlete Award. And right around that time, Mr. Vincent de Paul Dratty passed away, had been the chairman, and they said they want to choose one. It's like the Highlander. There can be only one. And that was going to be me. And and back then they told you before the event who was going to be top scholar athlete. And so I got a call, hey, you won the Scholar Athlete Award, and don't hate on me, but then it was like, I think now it's $18,000, then it was like, I don't know, like $10,000, maybe it was like $10,000. Like, wow, great. And they said, and then they called me back about a week later and said, you're not only going to get the Scholar Athlete Award, you're going to be the top scholar athlete. We're going to give you $20,000. And I said, thank you. It was interesting because I, like Jim, Dr. Hanson here, I was a Rhodes Scholar. And if you all know how the Rhodes Scholarship program works, you go in there, you have an interview, you have a reception the night before, then you have the interview. The problem was I had to be in Houston the day after I got named for the NFF ceremony. So in essence, I was going to be there through Wednesday, right? The reception was Wednesday in Houston. Thursday was the actual interview process. So I remember talking to the Rhodes consultants at Air Force Academy going, you've got to miss the National Football Foundation event, and you've got to travel early to Houston to go to the reception because it puts you in a better position to actually be successful the next day in the interview. So let me get this right. I got one group that's going to give me $30,000, and I already got that. And you want me to miss giving a talk in front of Roger Staubach and George Steinbrenner and Paul Tagliabue and God to go to a dinner party. Maybe you go to a dinner party. I'm staying. So Bill Campbell didn't choose no fool. So I did the right thing, and everything worked out, and ended up getting the scholarship. But what happened then, and I'll just stop, and I'll get into my prepared remarks in a second. But they gave me the Dratty Trophy, and it was this big. It's a little silver trophy. It's a beautiful trophy. Actually worth more than the big bronze ones we have. So I got one of those, right?
No, I got the big one. How do you get this thing home?
Did you get the big one the first
Very
time?
big giant thing. How do you get
I
this
got the
home?
little one. I got the little one, and there's a big one in the Hall of Fame. And so, but years later, I saw a picture of Peyton with Roger Staubach with the big one. More importantly, my sons. Got a 19-year-old and a 24-year-old. I know you can't believe it. I know you can't believe it. It's all Botox up here, man. But they said, Dad, why is Peyton's trophy bigger than yours? I go, I don't know. So I called Phil Marwell, and I said, Phil, what's up with the trophy, the discrepancy? And he said, no problem, man, we'll get you a trophy. So I rolled into New Jersey, and I got the big trophy. And then a couple of years later, Bill Campbell comes on the scene. They changed the trophy name to that, and they sent me it was the most coolest thing. They sent me a little plate, and I pulled off the Dratty thing, and I stuck the Campbell thing on. I was like, hey. And then I met Bill Campbell, and man, it was love at first sight. That guy was cooler than the other side of the pillow, man. He's a great guy, kind of slap you in your face a little bit, probably call you a jerk, tell you he loved you, and then what could I do to help you? And I was blessed to go back to Pittsburgh. I ended up going to Pittsburgh. Last time I talked this off to Bill, a couple years ago, and he's like, you know, I'm a Pittsburgher, and that's my hometown. I go, hey, I can't wait to support you when you come back and do all your great efforts. If you heard Charlie Bash yesterday, everything is true, and Charlie's a terrific human being. Bill has done so much great work in Pittsburgh and New York and Silicon Valley, and I was looking so forward to being a part of his life in Pittsburgh. But his legacy continues. We dedicate his picture next week in his whole high school, the William B. Campbell campus of Steel Valley High School. This guy he's everywhere. He's ubiquitous in the most positive way. So I had 2 speeches in my mind to give you guys, or remarks to give you guys, and I'm still kind of flirting with it. I'm gonna go with the shorter one because my wife would tell me the same thing. So I'm gonna give you the 3B talk. So Chris Howard, 7th grade, and these are B's I want you to live with and kind of take with you and reflect on it as you leave the summit. Chris Howard, 7th grade, Plano, Texas, first day of school. I decided I was gonna show up with a tie, right? So imagine this, it's Texas, it's hot, it's August, it's always hot in Texas, it seems like. And it's a public school, so guys barely even wore underwear, better get a tie. And I show up the first day with a tie on. And all my friends, they used to call me Howie back then. Hey Howie, why are you wearing a tie? I said, I'm wearing a tie because I want to be somebody significant. I want to be a leader, I want to serve my country at some point, and I think that by wearing a tie, it shows me and it communicates that kind of guy I want to be. And they would say, oh, you know what? Howie's on crack cocaine. Why somebody would show up in a tie, they didn't have to, but it didn't matter, because I was going to be myself. And the B is be yourself. That same 7th grader who showed up with a tie in 9th grade decided that, you know, I think I want to go to West Point. I ended up going to Air Force. I think I want to go to West Point, so I think I should join Army JROTC. My dad had been an Army officer in Vietnam. My uncle had served in Vietnam 2 tours. And you can imagine that in 9th grade in high school, here I am, I get issued what you call a BUU. You know what a BUU is, guys? But ugly uniform. It's, ugly as hell, green uniform, nothing on it, very plain. Had to wear that every Tuesday. So here's the outfit, guys. 4 days a week I'm in a tie, but I was still doing that. And the 5th day, I was wearing my BUU. I was a real ladies' man. Plano, Texas. But it didn't matter because I wanted to be myself. And I felt like it was okay to be different if I was trying to do the right thing for the right reasons. Fast forward to my senior year. Here I am, I'm still in our Army JRTC. I've been elected head of the Fellowship for Christian Athletes, student body president. I was kind of the man, and I'd gone from being cadet nobody, cadet private Howard, to cadet Colonel Howard. Man, I had 3 diamonds on my shoulders, I had ribbons up to here, I had medals down to there. I had a saber, and I would go into the locker room, the football team, and my buddies would give me a hard time. They're like, Chris, man, you're kind of cool. You got a good-looking uniform. I'm like, back off, baby. A knife right here, brother. But I was being myself. And you probably had similar incidents in your life, otherwise you wouldn't be where you are now. So we won state championship my senior year. In 1986, we won state, graduated in 87. And where they play Texas, where they play real high school football, not California. But real high school football in Texas, right? And so, you know, hey, it's Friday nights, right? Friday night lights. So Friday night, you have the party, you have the game, you win. After the game, time to partay. You go to the people's houses, sometimes the parents are there, and the parents ain't there, right? And I remember people coming to me and saying, hey, Howie, man, congratulations on the big win. Good to see you. Hey, you want to drink this? I'm like, no, thank you. Hey, Howie, you want to smoke this? I'm like, no, thank you. Hey, Howie, you want to lick this? No, hell no, I don't lick it. Man, I didn't get a partial. But I was going to be myself, you know. I wasn't going to do, at that point, I was underage. I wasn't drinking alcohol. I wasn't going to definitely want to do any illicit drugs because God had given me this temple and I was going to protect it. I was going to be myself. And, you know, it's tough when you're 18 years old and all the peer pressure's on you to do this and be cool. You make these decisions to be yourself. So that's the first B, be yourself. Now, I'm giving you the middle school, high school, and you're like, Dr. Howard, been there, done that. But recognize this, as you go through your lives, I was talking to Bobby about this, and he's plotting his journey. People are going to start making decisions for what you ought to be based on their conception of you even now. It doesn't change. Right? Later on in my life, I was at General Electric, and I have a friend who knows Suzanne Noah Johnson over here. Is she still here? Yeah, she's a former vice chairman of Goldman Sachs, a friend and mentor of mine. I'm in this program called the Henry Crown Fellowship, the Aspen Institute. People like Reed Hastings, who started Netflix, is also one of my classmates. About 20 of us in this program. And I was transitioning from, at that point, I'd gone from the military to corporate. I'm at General Electric, and I'm thinking about going to Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma, to take a post in higher education. And I remember one of my good friends in the group, sharp guy, he says, Chris, man, I want you to stay at GE and be the CEO of GE. I'm like, you be the CEO of GE. I don't want to do that, right? And that's a great job, but the same kid who said he was going to wear a tie to school, the same kid who wasn't going to smoke pot in 12th grade, the same kid that joined Army GRTC, the same man that said, you know what, that's not my path, that's your path. And I remember going into the CIO of GE, who I worked for in this fast track program, and I remember telling him, you know, great guy, he's absolute great American, great athlete in his own right. And I remember telling my boss, Gary, hey, I'm going to go to Oklahoma to be a associate vice president for strategic planning and be a professor there. He goes, what the hell are you going to Nebraska for? Going to Nebraska, I'm going to Oklahoma. He goes, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Ohio, it's all the same damn thing. What the hell are you going there for? You just stay here and be a world beater here at GE. So again, I'm telling you now, since it's going to sneak up on you, I mean, you're going to be pushing toward your dreams and aspirations, and people are going to be telling you, go left instead of going right. Now, I'm not saying don't listen to mentors and counseling or what have you, but understand, there's a light that God's put inside of you. There's a passion, there's an interest. Be open to it, respect it, and be yourself. Here's my second B. It goes back to the Air Force Academy, where I played for a great guy and a future Hall of Fame coach named Fisher DeBerry. Anybody here from South Carolina? You won't want to say that after I tell you this story. Fisher DeBerry is from South Carolina, which meant he spoke often, loud, and in a way that you could not understand. He would say things like this. By God, man, we need to kick the punt the baseball, let's go right now. What the hell did coach just say? I don't know, but keep running, he might shut up. He just had a way with words. He would say things like, ah! That's not a word. I guess in South Carolina it is a word, huh? And he would have this, he just had this, he could turn a phrase. He could just make you smile and scratch your head at the same time. And he said this, I think we were there together in New York when he spoke on behalf of the college coaches going in. He told a story. He gave one of those homonyms that he used to do back when we were students all the time. We were student athletes. He said, by golly, man, if you leave this room and you see a turtle on a fence post, he didn't get there by himself. It's not biology, no turtle. We're playing football. You got to understand, right? There's a turtle and the fence had to get there. Had teamwork, right? Coach Goody just said teamwork. He didn't bring no damn turtles in his damn thing. But that's the way Coach talked. And he was a wonderful man. He still is. He's like an uncle to me. And it was my senior year at the Air Force Academy. That senior year, by the way, that we beat Ohio State in the Liberty Bowl. 17-point underdogs, won by 12. Oh, how I hate Ohio. I'm just kidding. I won't say that. Gene Smith's a good friend of mine. I love Ohio State. Great institution. But we did beat them, though. Just you can Google that. You can Google that. But the beginning of our senior year, 2-a-day practices. The fourth practice, Coach DeBerry had us in a semicircle on a knee. And you guys know the scene. You're all ball players. And you're down there, and Coach is going off. Yeah, golly, man. Well, we got to get after the Army this year. Oh, the Army was tough last year. Yeah, we got to get after BYU. And by God, Coach talked so long, he had to switch knees. He was on a roll, baby. Coach said, yeah, golly, we don't get after the tight ends blocking better. We're going to have to. Well, 17 knees later, Coach said something was pretty profound. He said, by golly, man, what kind of team we have if everybody were to play just like you? And by golly, man, what kind of team we have if everybody would have practiced just like you? And by golly, man, what kind of team we have if everybody would have comport themselves in the classroom just like my friend David right back there? What kind of team will we have? What Coach was asking us to do was to be accountable. That's the second B. Be accountable. And as Coach was talking, I reflected back to my junior year at the Air Force Academy in my moral philosophy class with Captain Davis, where he learned about a guy named Immanuel Kant, Dr. Immanuel Kant, a German philosopher who wrote something called a categorical imperative. And one of the second parts of the categorical imperative goes something like this: how universalizable are your actions? If everybody were act just like you or friend Jim here or Phil or you in every moral circumstance, what kind of world would we have, right? How universalizable are your actions? How accountable are you going to be? Now, what happened, very, very funny thing that happened about all that is that I took Coach DeBerry's comments and Kant's categorical imperative. That was my Rhodes essay. That was my Rhodes Scholarship essay. And when they read it, they thought I was either crazy or brilliant. Because who would take a football coach with a German moral philosopher and match it up and make an essay? I must have been brilliant because I got the Rhodes Scholarship, right? But I started reflecting on this whole idea of accountability. I want you to understand this. Somebody's looking at you. And even when you don't think someone's looking at you, they are looking at you. You guys are, like I say about student athletes in college, especially for guys. And it's kind of cliche, but it's true. Either you played or you wish you played. Rest assured. I don't care if you're a D3, D2, D1, FCS, or whatever, NAI. On campus, you were literally and figuratively the big man on campus, right? And when you were in the locker room and when you were doing stuff in the class, and it's going to carry on into your life, somebody was watching you and going, man, if I could just be like Wade. Oh, if I could just be like Wade, I'd be okay. If I could just be like Dallas, boy, I'd be okay. To this day, I receive emails and things on Facebook where people say, Chris, you don't remember me, but I remember you. Back in 7th grade, you took on me they were picking on me in the math class. I was the only 6th grader in the class, and I was picking on you. And Chris, you said to the class, when the teacher left, he said, stop picking on John. He's a nice kid, stop making fun of him. He goes, my name wasn't John, but I understand. True story. Because I know what you were trying to do for me. So you have high expectations. My mom always says, the higher you get up the flagpole, the more your butt the world can see. And this whole idea about accountability, it does not change, it does not diminish over time, but rather it increases, it goes up. And as you go up and do more and more and more stuff, people are going to expect more out of you. So please be accountable. In the United States Army, they say that when you do something as a general officer, that becomes the standard, right? There's a president of a university, head of a research center, leader in business, my friend Tom over there. When you do something, that becomes the standard. Recognize that. Now, we're all student athletes or former student athletes. We get that. When you're looking at the captain, if he or she, taking a lazy step or whatever, then you can take a lazy step, right? If they're swearing in the classroom, not going to class, then that means that all the freshmen can do the same thing. Teams that win are ones that have leadership and they have accountable leadership. I'll tell you a quick story, then I go to my final B. So I remember when I was the president of Hampton-Sydney College, D3 school down there in Virginia. I was there for about 7 years. I went out to Wintergreen, not too far from Charlottesville. And a friend of mine, former Secretary of State, and on my board, a guy named John Hillen, let me stay at his little cottage out there for a weekend to kind of decompress. My wife and my kids were out of town, so I took my dog, Sammy, named after Sammy Bradford, who's one of my former students at Oklahoma. Pretty cool. Didn't have nearly as much money as Sam has, but he's still a great dog. So I'm driving up to Wintergreen, and I get to the cottage, and I get out, and I'm taking my stuff out, and all of a sudden I hear this, Dr. Howard, I hear, and I say, God? And it wasn't God, but it was someone who worked at Hampton-Sydney College who had a cottage near one of my trustees' homes. The first thing I thought is, man, she's getting a pretty good salary to have a cottage next to my friend's house out here in Wintergreen, this whole ski resort. But anyway, we talked for a few minutes. He said, oh, Dr. Hillen said you were coming up here, and hope you have a good time. If you need anything, knock on my door. I said, thank you very much. So I grabbed my items, I started walking to the cottage. And I thought to myself, that could have gone very differently if I didn't realize that someone's always watching you, right? I could have gotten out of the car, could have picked my nose, scratched my butt, the crap out of my dog. Hey, Dr. Howard, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kick the dog like that. I was just scratching it. It had an itch in its behind, right? Now, I'm not saying we should be superficial, nor am I saying that we're perfect. We're not perfect people. The only perfect person on this earth walked it a long time ago, in my humble opinion, in my belief system. But what I'm saying is, especially in the light of social media, that someone is watching you. And the more you do, the more success you had, because this is just the beginning. Jim and I had this great talk about, serendipity in relationships. Man, you guys are, boy, you're smart, you're good looking, you're athletic, you're connected. You think your life before was good. It's gonna be a rocket ship after this. And the more you get, the more you have, the more you excel, the more people are gonna be watching you and going, if I could just be like Nathan. If I could just be like Nathan. So be accountable, man. Be accountable. Here's my last beat. January 17, 1995, then Captain Howard, stationed at Laughlin Air Force Base, Del Rio, Texas, about 2 hours west of San Antonio, near the Mexican border. It's on his third solo mission, flying a T-37 jet trainer. T-37 is a little bubble jet trainer. You sit side by side, student, instructor, can pull about 6.67 Gs, goes about 230 knots an hour. Nice little introductory jet trainer. So I took off and I'm flying out to the MOA, the military operating area. I make a radio call, sounds something like this. Target 3-1, area 3-9, request permission to do acrobatic maneuvers, over. Roger 3-9, you're clear acrobatic maneuvers. Roger that. Man, like I said before about Bill, I was cooler than the other side of the pillow. Because I'd been given permission to do a series of acrobatic maneuvers by myself for the first time ever. So I did a series of these maneuvers, culminating in a maneuver called the Cuban 8. You want to see it? Is that a rhetorical question? Wake up, y'all want to see it? Came out with Pittsburgh to show y'all this stuff, man. So, it goes like this. You want to see it again? What you do is you do a loop, and you invert it, and when you invert it, you go from inverted to erect, you pull the stick up, and then when the plane was supposed to go this way, instead it went that way. Now, you don't have to be a William V. Campbell finalist to know when you pull the stick this way, the plane ain't supposed to go that way, which is what it did. And all of a sudden, a plane that sounded like this typically, sounded like this. That is a bad aircraft sound, let me tell you. And all of a sudden, I start getting negative in the seat. When the roller coaster start going down, so instead of sitting in the seat firmly, I'm kind of floating up. My head's hitting the top of the canopy. And like I told you before, guys, the plane's supposed to go about maximum about 230 knots, 240 miles an hour. It was about 250 knots, 270 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, Captain Howard starts to do some really, really bad word problems, algebra in his head. Now, if Captain Howard's flying 250 miles an hour straight toward the ground, and a train leaves Chicago at 5 o'clock in the morning, when's Captain Howard gonna die? It's always one of those trains in those word problems, right? So, I'm flying toward the ground. It's about 250, 260, 270, 280, 290 miles an hour. And I'm starting to see things, guys, that pilots should never see. I'm starting to see trees. I'm starting to see leaves on trees. I'm starting to see squirrels on leaves on trees. Guys, I'm starting to see nuts in the hands of squirrels on leaves on trees. And all of a sudden, I just say to myself, at about 300 miles an hour, 310 miles an hour, about 2,200 on the clock, about 2,250 feet above the ground, I say, I'm gonna die. Wait a minute, there's an ejection seat on this thing. So I reach down, grab the hand grips, squeeze the triggers, and all of a sudden, no longer cooler than the other side of the pillow, I promise you. Because what happens when you eject from an airplane, it's a controlled explosion, right? So basically, the ejection seat shoots up a little explosion, it comes up, it shoots you up the rail in the seat, the canopy blows off, right? And then you get hit in the face. It's like getting hit in the face by, is that linebacker from Mississippi here?
Yeah.
Where is he? You remember Tony Bennett, the linebacker of Ole Miss that came before you?
Yes.
Man, he knocked me out in the Liberty Bowl. Don't tell anybody. He knocked me out. It was like getting hit by 5 Tony Bennett's. Not the one that sings, but the one that hits you in the mouth. Bam! You think about it, the plane's going 300 miles an hour. You don't have to be Jim here, you know, the physicist here, to know all that force and all the aerodynamic forces. So, wham, that's what the whole lure is all about. So then you get this opening shock, because your canopy deploys, right? It's at the very end, you pack the parachute on, and you just, and then at that point I looked out, and about 800 meters away, the airplane I was in, that was so cooling, hit the ground, exploded, fireball. Right? And then all the training, they say the military training kicks in, right? Like in being an athlete. So I reached down, I'm supposed to take the visor on my mask, you know, kind of Tom Cruise, cool, Top Gun, and I'm supposed to raise it, but I realized that my helmet had been sucked off in the ejection. Just sucked off. And I look at my hand, and I realized that my Nomex gloves, my fire retardant gloves, sucked off. And I kind of licked my lip, and I realized my face was swollen, blood was coming outside my face. And then I said, I'm gonna land right now. Because it was a high speed, low altitude ejection, which meant I didn't have a lot of swings in the chute. And all of a sudden, I was like, I'm gonna land there, and poof! And I'd done parachute landing falls. I'd been trained how to fall out of a perfectly good airplane in my life. And so I knew I was supposed to do a PLF, a parachute landing fall. Instead, you know what I did? A PFL. Pretty freaking bad landing. Just pummeled into the ground, hurt my knee. And sat there for a second, said some words that I cannot repeat in mixed company. And then again, training starts kicking in. I set up my emergency locator transmitter to show where I was. I drank some water to treat myself from shock. I assessed my injuries and realized I had hurt my knee, didn't know how extensive the injuries were. I took my parachute, and in peacetime, your parachute is a orange and white parachute because they want to see you. And I spread it out, put some rocks around it, and I sat there. And about 20 minutes later, one of my classmates at the T-37 came over with his instructor pilot. They rocked their wings, so they knew where I was. So I sat there, sat tight. And I told you I was near the Mexican border. So about 2.5 hours later, a Border Patrol helicopter flew from the border, 60, picked me up and flew me back to Laughlin Air Force Base. So guys, I get to the Air Force Base and I get out of the aircraft and I'm kind of limping because my knee is pretty swollen, jacked up. And I salute and Colonel Pepe, Tim Pepe, who was the commander, says, well, Captain Howard, what happened? I said, sir, I was doing a Cuban 8 and it turned into a nose-low recovery and then it turned into an ejection. He goes, well, you made the right decision because I'm here to shake your hand and not pick it up off the ground. Well, in about 48 hours later, I was whisked down to Wilford Hall, which is one of the top Air Force medical facilities down in San Antonio, and I had knee surgery. I had torn meniscus. And part of the story I usually don't tell, but because you guys are student athletes, you'll appreciate this. When I came out of the recovery room, I'm in a fog. Any of y'all that had surgery before, but kind of in a haze. I look up and I see this big Mandingo black dude sit up on the table across from me. I'm like, I must be on drugs. And I go, Rodney? He's like, yeah, it's my fullback. Stationed in California, flew in to San Antonio and heard what happened. Talked his way into the recovery room, was in the recovery when I got up and came up and gave me a hug. Brothers are hard to beat, man. We play a special sport, we have a special bond and a special kinship. That's a complete aside, nobody gets that part. I won't even charge you extra for that. When your brother flies out to see you, when you're in your darkest day, or one of your darkest days, you just know you've done something special. So nonetheless, fast forward, back at the Air Force Base, and over a period of about 6-8 weeks, I had not one, but 2 Air Force investigations to find out what happened, and I had to rehab my knee. And I fell back in the class I was supposed to go in because they proceeded forward the 30 pilots, and I'm kind of in limbo. And then about 6-8 weeks later, I get a note from Colonel Pepe's office that we've done the investigation. This is what we discovered. This is what you did wrong, Captain Howard. This is what the plane did wrong, and this is what your instructor pilot did wrong, right? But you know what? You are cleared to fly again. You are cleared to fly again. So I remember guys sitting in that room at Laughlin Air Force Base. By the way, I just got engaged on December 25th before that. My wife's from South Africa. So first off, I had to call my mom and dad and say, Mom, Dad, I'm okay. And I got a voicemail. Can you imagine this voicemail? I'm okay, but I had a plane crash. Holler! So after they peeled my mom off the ceiling, they called my fiance and told her I was okay. But here it is, 8 weeks later after a plane crash, and I'm sitting in my room. One of the times, talking about mental health, and this one I always thought I was going to lose my mind. Picked up the Bible, started reading the Bible, had a peace, started reflecting upon how I got in this place and what I was going to do. Because remember, last time, gentlemen, I flew an airplane, I damn near killed myself, damn near died. So I thought, maybe the Air Force has some jobs underground. Why don't we go up in the sky? Be a coal miner in the Air Force and not go up in the ground. But I started reflecting after reading the Bible, being prayerful, just kind of breathing through it and going, how did I get here? And I thought about who had sacrificed for me to be in that spot. I thought first of the 54th Massachusetts Volunteers, the regiment that had 5 of Frederick Douglass's sons that fought in the Civil War. Had the first Black Congressional Medal of Honor winner, James Carney, right? Here are men of color who fought to save their country, but when they went back to their respective towns, they were treated like second-class citizens because they were Black. I thought about Benjamin O. Davis Jr. They just named a hall after him at West Point. Benjamin O. Davis Jr., West Point class of 1936, went on to lead the Tuskegee Airmen. You know the story of the Tuskegee Airmen? This is a group of all Black fighter pilots, P-51 Mustang pilots that escorted bombers over North Africa and in Europe during World War II and never lost a bomber they escorted, ever. But when they went back to towns like Montgomery and Richmond and Dallas, some of them, their lives were threatened, they were spit upon, they could not wear their uniforms because they were Black. Benjamin O. Davis Jr., when he was at West Point, class of 1936, only Black cadet there. His classmates only spoke to him for official business. Could you imagine being a student at a university and no one talks to you, none of your classmates say a word to you because you're Black, because of your color of your skin, for 4 years? I thought about what he had done for me to be in that cockpit. I thought finally about my father who had served in Vietnam as a common engineer, Bronze Star recipient. And I thought also about my uncle Charles Bo Howard, who had been a 101st Airborne Field Artilleryman in Vietnam, who had come back to Fort Benning, Georgia. He told me this story. Late 60s, comes back to Fort Benning, Georgia, home of the Airborne, home of the infantry. And Uncle Bo was always cool, man. Always had a cool Oldsmobile, man. So he was driving his Oldsmobile on the base one day, and right before he got into the base, got pulled over by a Georgia police officer. Police officer comes up to his car, says, "Boy, you were speeding." And Uncle Bo goes, "Officer, I actually wasn't speeding." He says, "Shut up, N." And the N didn't stand for NBA or NFL, I promise you. Shut up, N. Combat veteran, service country. Shut up, N. You have no agency. You have no voice here. I don't care if you did serve your country. So I thought about all those things that night, along with praying about it. So when I went to Colonel Pepe's office the next morning, he stood before me and he said, "What are you going to do, Cap? What are you going to do, Captain Howard?" I snapped to attention. I saluted smartly and said, "Sir, Captain Howard reports prepared to fly." And here's the B. Be courageous. Be courageous. We talk about leadership as if it is a soft, fluffy cotton ball or 2 scoops of ice cream, or gelato if you like. But leadership is really, 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 really freaking hard. It's gonna take physical, emotional, spiritual courage for you all to lead. And here's the deal. Us old timers, my buddy Tom and Jim, we want to be drinking gin and tonics on the beach in Florida. So you guys got this one, right? So you're gonna have to be leaders. You already have been, but more is to come. And like I said about accountability, as you go up, it's like Jay-Z said, more money, more problems. Is that Jay-Z or Diddy? One of them. More money, more problems. More authority, more leadership, more courage. Don't think for a minute that all you read about, you want to Google leadership and you want to get 1,000 books. You want to read about Bill Campbell, a great leader in his own right. The sacrifices you have to make, the things you have to do are going to require you to be courageous. So that's the final B I want to leave you with, is to be courageous and recognize to choose the harder right is really, really difficult. But what you have is in your tanks is you have years and years of the best leadership laboratory that the world has to offer. It's combat sports, football. It has its challenges and its issues, and we're going to get it right. I'm acknowledging the challenges we have here. But as Douglas MacArthur said when he served as the superintendent of the United States Military Academy, on the fields of friendly strife, are sowing the seeds, and the other days and other fields will bear the fruits of victory. What you do right now and what you did on that field are preparing you to be courageous and to be accountable, to be yourself. I know, I served now. You'll hear from Nate. He's a combat veteran. I served in Afghanistan as a human intelligence officer, and I can tell you, when we would strap them on our gear and go out the wire in a convoy, and I used to tell my kids, my job was to tell the good guys where the bad guys were so we could kill them. It was like strapping on a Saturday afternoon. You start putting that weapon on, and I was in civilian clothes and kind of secret spooky, what have you, going out and doing some, sneaking and creeping and what have you. When your unit gets together and you look each other in the eye, it's just like being in a huddle, guys. And that's what this sport did, right? It prepared us. It was those fields of friendly strife, playing against Notre Dame, playing against BYU, and supporting your brother in tough times. You've all been there before. You all have the exact same stories. As the Shakespeare said, no, we few, we happy few, for he who sheds his blood with me is my brother. So we got a lot of brothers here. So take those intangibles from what you've done on the gridiron and take them to life. And as old timers here, we're proof positive that it does work. Coach Campbell is the supreme. We're all trying to be like Coach. He's the supreme example of that, playing in Pittsburgh, the gritty school out there in Homestead, and then coming out to Columbia and having a successful career as an All-American out there. So that's all I got for you, right? Be yourself, be accountable,